Joining us now to discuss the matter are Greg Fergus, Liberal MP for Hull-Aylmer in Quebec and Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister, Melissa Lantsman, Conservative MP for the riding of Thornhill in Ontario and now Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party, and Taylor Bachrach, the NDP MP for Skeena-Bulkley Valley in British Columbia. Hello to the three of you.
Hi, welcome back.
Listen, thank you. Mr. Fergus, I got to begin with you. Will the requirement to use the ArriveCAN app and for arrivals to be vaccinated coming into this country, will those soon be coming to an end?
Well, I could tell you that the expiry date for government to reconsider this is happening on September 30th. As you know, in every previous time, every 3 or 4 months, we set an expiry period. The Minister of Health, in consultation with the Public Health Agency of Canada, experts, scientists, makes an evaluation. This is what we promised Canadians. We promised them that we would make sure and give them absolute, as best security as we can for their health. And we will take the best advice possible, and then we will make a decision as a result of that. So based on the facts and figures that they're currently evaluating, we'll find out their decision in the next week or so.
Okay, that sounds like a long way of saying yes without saying yes. Ms. Lantsman, what do you think?
Well, look, we didn't get the science for the justification for the app from the start. We didn't get the justification of the science to keep it, and we certainly don't have any justification for the science to continue it. It seems like the government has always made this about a political decision, and it's nice to see them backing down from something that border mayors, tourism associations, chambers of commerce, and just about every stakeholder we spoke to said, drop the app. Glad to see the government's doing. But I've got one more thing, and I hope that those who were fined for not complying with this COVID theater are returned their $6,000 fine or their plus $6,000 fine that they received for this incompetence.
Mr. Bachrach, what's your reaction to all this? What do you make of what we are seeing in reports and what we're hearing so far from Liberal MPs?
Sure. So especially at the land borders, we're hearing a ton of concerns from mayors, from travelers who are in long lineups, and from the workers at the borders who are frustrated because essentially they're having to serve as IT help desks for people who are struggling with the technology. This isn't an efficient process. And so I think if these rumors are true, if these leaks are true, and the government makes the app optional, that's going to resolve some of these concerns that we're hearing. But again, the thing we've seen from this government all along is a lack of transparency. They haven't explained the criteria when it came to the domestic flight mandate. We pushed them for ages to explain to Canadians what science it was based on. We still haven't gotten an explanation. So when it comes to changing policy based on changing conditions, we absolutely want a government that's responsive. We also want a government that's transparent, and that's where they've been falling down.
You know, Ms. Lantsman, you talk about the science never backing up this policy, and certainly you're right. We have heard from the travel industry. We've heard from the airline industry. They have been calling for an end to, for example, the mandatory use of the ArriveCAN app. But, you know, the pandemic itself is not yet over. So what do you tell Canadians who would still like to see travelers screened before entering this country?
Well, there was no reason that the government ever put forward for why we screen travelers. There is nothing that you do in your daily life. There are no restrictions in the province that we are currently in, or frankly, any other province in terms of screening or masking. So to continue these restrictions are frankly not in line with everything else we are doing and most of our allies are doing in the world. So I say to the government, if you have a justification for this, show your work, just like you would have in high school. We've continuously asked for that. We've been continuously denied that. And in fact, just less than a month ago, or just about a month ago, the Minister of Transport actually said that ArriveCAN makes the airports more efficient. And we've seen a summer of travel that has been horrendous. I know the Prime Minister doesn't know that. He travels privately and not through airports. But Canadians are still struggling with long lineups in airports, long lineups at land borders. It's taken a toll on our economy and certainly on our reputation.
Okay, Mr. Bachrach, let me try it with you then, because yes, we have seen long lines, and yes, people are talking about the economic impact of such measures. But again, the pandemic is not yet over. So how do you circle the square for people who are still concerned about unvaccinated, perhaps sick people crossing into the Canadian border?
So from the very beginning, we've always said that policy needs to follow public health. We need to ensure that Canadians are kept safe. We need the government to do what it takes to achieve that. And we need the government to be transparent and to explain to Canadians why certain measures are necessary, both at the time when they're established and when those measures are relaxed. I think near the beginning of the pandemic, they did somewhat better in that transparency, but it really hasn't lived up to expectations recently. We've seen decisions without any clear explanation. And I think Canadians deserve that. At the end of the day, people want measures that are based on science, that are based on public health. And as the pandemic conditions change, we want a government that's responsive.
Now, Mr. Fergus, I'll bring it back to you because you've been hearing the criticism, the concern, and based on reports out there regarding these measures, including the ArriveCAN app, there have also been Liberal MPs who apparently have been lobbying for an end to such measures, an end to the app, and that's within caucus. So I'm wondering what you've heard within caucus that you might share with us right now.
Well, I'm not going to share what we discussed in caucus, but I will share with you and with all Canadians is that all throughout the pandemic, we've always followed the science. When we've had our advisory groups that have provided information and their conclusions to the Minister of Health, we have taken decisions as a result. That's why Canada had one of the best responses in the world to this pandemic. We had comparatively, very few deaths. Comparatively, we were #1 in terms of getting vaccinated, and we've been doing really well in our measures in terms of controlling the spread. That's due to Canadians following the science. That's what the government has done, and that's what we'll continue to do. And I look forward to the next decision that the Minister of Health will take from his advisory council and share that with all of us.
Okay, now to my understanding, and again, this is based on reports, it seems like the caucus is in agreement that it needs to an end, but what you're now waiting for is the Prime Minister's approval. So if that is true, when will we actually hear the news that this is going to happen or not happen?
Well, you'll hear if it's going to happen or not happen before September 30th. And this is what we did at every time that we've come to an expiry date of the order in council. We've always announced in advance what the measures would be going forward for the next period. And so that's what we'll do this time, just as we did in every other period.
Okay. Well, we await to find out what actually happens here. But for now, Greg Fergus, Melissa Lantsman, as well as Taylor Bachrach, thank you for this. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Mike.